how's it going? Today I'm going to do another use it up video. That's where I show you how to use up leftover ingredients that you may have and not know what to do with. I had a particular request from a viewer by the name of Lynn 555727, I believe. Sorry if I got your name wrong. But anyway, Lynn, you requested that I make a video to use up uh, baby bell peppers that you may have. You said that you often have these and that you have them left over and you don't know what to do with them. Well, so today's video is all about using up bell peppers. I actually had to buy more to make all of these ingredients, or to make all of these recipes rather, but you get the point. It's to show you how to use up peppers. So I do have some additional, I have a red, a yellow, and an orange bell pepper. Well, I have more than these, but because I'm making 3 recipes. So the recipes I'm going to show you are, the first, I'm going to call it a Jammy Bell Pepper Sauce. Why do I say it's jammy and why do I say sauce? Because I'm emphasizing it's not a jelly. I don't use pectin in this recipe, so it doesn't end out like a red pepper jelly. It actually turns out more like a jam and a sauce. And so what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put it on top of baked tofu, and I'll show you how to make that. But you certainly can add pectin and make yourself a pepper jelly. I am also adding a serrano pepper because I do like heat. You, of course, can skip that. The other caveat about this recipe is it does have sugar. I'm using cane sugar, but I'm not using that much. You certainly can increase it if you want a sweeter sauce. You can also skip the cane sugar and use something like coconut sugar if you don't want the refined white sugar. Yes, it is vegan sugar, and it is it's a cane sugar. The other recipe I'm making is a corn and pepper polenta bake. And yes, it has peppers and it has corn and polenta in it. And then I'm going to make that all and then put it in a casserole and bake it. And in fact, I think it sounds good to me to eat with the tofu with the Jammy Bell Pepper Sauce. The third recipe is a soup. I'm going to roast these peppers. I'm going to roast them with some onions, I believe, and some garlic. And then I have potatoes and cannelli beans, I think. And I'm going to mix those all together and blend them partially to create a creamy soup base. I'm going to, of course, add some vegetable stock. But then in addition to that, I'm going to leave some of the vegetables out to add later, to add a bit of texture, if you will, and body to the soup. And then I think it sounds good to top it with maybe a cashew cream. So those are the 3 recipes I have in mind. Of course, there's more. Viewers, if you have any suggestions for how you like to use your leftover bell peppers, obviously, please leave that in the comments. So anyway, I'm going to get on to showing you how to make these recipes. So I'm going to go into the kitchen. So the first recipe I'll show you how to make is the Jammy Bell Pepper Sauce. You'll need the equivalent of 3 cups of finely diced bell peppers. I have the combination that I showed you, the red, orange, and yellow. And what I'm going to do is I'm chopping them into large chunks or slices. And then I'm going to use, I have this mandolin food chopper. I'm going to put them in there and finely dice these all. So here I have 3 cups of finely diced bell peppers, and I'm going to place them into a saucepan. Then I added 1 cup of apple cider vinegar, as well as 1/2 cup of water, 1/2 cup of cane sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I then also diced 1 serrano pepper because I wanted the sauce to have heat. So I diced that into smaller pieces, and I intentionally reserved the seeds because that's where all the heat is located. And then I added this to the sauce. I then stirred all the ingredients together, and I brought the heat up to a medium-high heat to bring it to a low boil. And then I turned it down and simmered it for about 25 minutes to allow the sauce to thicken. And occasionally I stirred it. After allowing this sauce to simmer for about 25 minutes, I then added 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. I then gave the sauce another stir, and on medium heat, I allowed it to continue simmering for about another 10 minutes. I then allowed it to cool, and then I placed it into a storage container to place in the refrigerator to cool even further. And as it cools, it does slightly thicken. 2 ideas I have for using this cold is one with vegan cream cheese and crackers and then placing this on top. Another one is to use as a spread on a sandwich. But here you see I enjoy it warm on top of some baked tofu. I'll next show you how to make the corn and pepper polenta bake you see. So I'm going to start this recipe by pouring 4 cups of vegetable broth in a saucepan. And then I'm going to turn on the heat here and bring it up to a boil. While that comes to a boil, I'm going to dice some bell pepper here. I'm going to get about 1 1/2 cups worth of bell pepper. I'm going to use all 3 colors, so I have a variety of colors in my polenta. I'll get some red here and the orange, and then I'll get some yellow. So I'd like these roasted, but instead of putting them in the oven, since I'm kind of short on time here, I'm going to try air frying them just to get them maybe a bit softened and slightly burned or roasted looking. I hope the air fryer works. I can't promise, but we're going to try it. Let's see what I have here. I'm going to fill this up and see how much I have. Almost looks like 2 cups. Oh, it's exactly 1 1/2 cup. That's pretty funny. All right, that's good. So my vegetable broth has come to a boil, and I'm going to pour in 1 cup of polenta. Now, I have quick cooking polenta, which only takes 3 minutes. If you have long cooking or regular polenta, you're going to need to cook it for about 20 minutes, but this says it takes only 3 minutes. So my polenta is now thickened, and I'm going to turn this off and let it sit. I'm going to add a little bit of avocado oil to my peppers and stir that around. I think I put these in here to heat them up. I'm going to add some salt and a bit of black pepper. I have a little kitchenette in my basement. My air fryer's down there, so I'll meet you down there. Okay, so I'm going to stick this in here and hit it to air fry. I think I'm going to put it in for maybe about, I'm going to try 7 minutes. I think it's at, let's see the temperature. It's at 390, so I'll try that. My air fryer sounds like it's about to fly away. So now I'm whisking in 1 tablespoon of olive oil. If you want to skip this, you can. Then I'm adding 1 teaspoon of garlic powder and 1/2 teaspoon of smoked paprika. I'm gonna whisk that in. Now I'm adding 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. Well, maybe a little more. I really like the cheesy flavor. I'm adding 1 teaspoon of salt. And I just microwaved 1 cup of frozen corn because I'm adding that. I didn't really cook it that much. I just thawed it in the microwave. So here's the corn. I'm going to mix that in. So I ran down to the air fryer and I checked on the peppers and they look perfect. They're slightly blistered. They're definitely softened and they look roasted to me. So you could certainly do it. What I did is 7 minutes in the air fryer at 390 degrees Fahrenheit. You certainly could roast these in the oven, let's say at 375 degrees for maybe like 20 minutes. But this was fast. In fact, I think I'm gonna put my tofu in the air fryer. And that'll make my dinner even faster. So I'm going to add the peppers to the polenta and the corn. And I'll stir that and mix that in. Okay, so now I'm adding a handful of fresh parsley that I chopped. I don't know, I'd say it's about maybe 2 tablespoons worth. And I'm gonna stir that in. This is actually looking quite good. I'm going to lightly grease this baking pan. I'm using olive oil. And then I'm going to pour the polenta in that. One thing I like about the pots and pans that I purchased is that nothing seems to stick to them. These are really good pans. So now I poured this into the baking casserole dish. I'm gonna level the top and then I'm gonna top it with some gluten-free vegan breadcrumbs. And I'm just gonna slightly mix those breadcrumbs with a little bit of olive oil and some oregano. So like I said, it's about 1/2 cup of the breadcrumbs, about a teaspoon of oregano, and then, I don't know, just a little bit, maybe 2 teaspoons of the olive oil. Again, skip the oil if you don't want it. Just want to give this a nice crunchy top. And the oil does help to crisp things up a bit without being too dry. Okay, so now I'm going to place this in a 375 degree Fahrenheit oven. I'm going to bake it for about, I'd say 25 minutes. I'll check on it. So I checked the polenta and I actually put it in for another 5 minutes for a total of 30 minutes. So I'm going to take it out now and see how it looks. Looks nice and golden brown on the top. It looks like, oh, it's firm, but it's very hot. So I am going to see if I can cut this into squares. I'm gonna let it sit though for about 10 minutes, just as you would with a lasagna. So here's my plate. The polenta bake is somewhat like, it has the texture of a corn pudding. It's not firm, and that may change if you use a long cooking polenta. I use, like I said, the 3-minute quick cook. It may change and become firmer. But nevertheless, I tasted it. It's good. And this is the pepper sauce that I created to put on top of the baked tofu. So I'm going to give this all a taste to see how it is. And I'll give you my impressions. So I'm going to give this a try. I have been excited to get a bigger bite of the polenta, so I'm going to start with that. First bite I took, I see a pepper. There's a pepper in there and some corn. It's like a corn pudding. It's very good. With peppers, obviously. This would make a good side dish during Thanksgiving. So now I'm going to try the pepper sauce on top of the tofu and see how that tastes. I overcooked my tofu a bit. It's a bit chewy, I think, but I'm trying the pepper sauce. So you can see it's a nice bright color. That too is good. I can taste the serrano peppers. It's a nice combination of just slightly sweet and the acidity from the apple cider vinegar. And it has pronounced pepper flavor. It's really good, and it pairs really nicely with this polenta bake. Well, I'm going to finish my dinner. So now I'm moving on to showing you how to make the roasted pepper soup with potatoes and white beans. What you want to do is chop about 3 cups full of the peppers. Again, I'm going to do the red, yellow, and orange. And I'm placing these on a parchment-lined baking tray. So you want a combination of smaller pieces and larger pieces, because the larger pieces you're just going to blend into the soup, and the smaller pieces you're going to want to use whole in the soup. Then you want to take the peel off of a medium-sized yellow onion, and then you want to cut that into quarters and place it on the baking tray with the peppers. Then place about 5 cloves of garlic onto the baking tray. Don't take the peels off of them. You want the peels on. Rub everything on the tray with a bit of olive oil and then sprinkle it all with some salt and pepper. Then place the tray in a preheated 375-degree oven and roast everything for about 25 minutes until charred and softened. Clean 2 medium-sized yellow potatoes and then leave the skins on, but dice those into smaller bite-sized pieces. Place those in a saucepan filled with water over the stove, and then bring that water to a boil and boil the potatoes for about 10 minutes until they're slightly softened. You don't want them mushy. In the meantime, I added 6 cups of water to a pot over the stove, and I made chicken broth using this Not Chicken bouillon cubes by Edward & Sons. I really enjoy the flavor of this product. I added 3 of these bouillon cubes since I had 6 cups of water. Then to my high-speed blender, I added half of the boiled potatoes and half of the roasted peppers and all of the onions. And as far as the peppers were concerned, I took the larger chunks so as to leave the smaller bite-sized pieces to add to the soup later. I also took the garlic cloves and I squeezed out the insides of the roasted garlic into the blender. I also added 1/2 of a can of rinsed and drained cannelli beans. Then I added 2 cups of the vegetable broth to the mixture in the blender. I blended all of the ingredients together until I had a smooth, creamy soup base. I then poured that back into the remaining vegetable broth. I then added the whole pieces of roasted red peppers, and I also added the potatoes and the remaining half a can of the cannelli beans. I then added a teaspoon of salt and about a half a teaspoon of black pepper. I also added 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, and then I stirred everything together and brought it to about a low simmer on medium heat. In planning to eat this soup, I made a quick cashew cream. What I did was I took half a cup of unsalted, unroasted cashews, and I soaked them in boiling water for 30 minutes. I then drained them and put them in my mini high-speed blender. It's a NutriBullet. I then added 1/2 cup of water, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I then blended everything together until I had a smooth and creamy sauce. By this time, I was excited to dish up some soup, so I put some of the soup in a bowl and I made sure to give myself enough of the peppers and beans and potatoes. I then topped it with some of the cashew cream. The soup is earthy and hearty. It's warming and comforting, and it definitely has a hint of the roasted peppers. And then you feel substance from the beans and the potatoes. I thoroughly enjoy this. Okay, well, that's it for this video. If you have any additional suggestions for ways to use bell peppers, please leave those in the comments below. Also, if you have a particular ingredient or food item that you struggle with knowing how to use up if you have it left over, please leave a comment below about that, and I can consider it for another video, as I did with the bell pepper video. Also, check out these next videos.